Welcome to News Beacon, your trusted source for breaking headlines, global insights, and sharp analysis from around the world. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. What is a tariff? Simply put, it's a tax on goods brought into the U.S. from other countries. When foreign companies want to sell products here, the U.S. government can add an extra cost at the border. That's the tariff. The idea is to make foreign products more expensive, encouraging Americans to buy goods made in the USA. But tariffs aren't just abstract policy, they impact your daily life and your wallet. For example, if there's a 25% tariff on washing machines from South Korea, the price you pay at the store goes up. Importers pass the cost to you, the consumer. This applies to thousands of items, from shoes to cars to food. Supporters say tariffs protect American industries and jobs by making domestic products more competitive. They argue it's worth higher prices if it means more U.S. manufacturing and employment. Critics counter that tariffs are a hidden tax on everyone, raising costs for businesses and families alike. American companies that rely on imported parts face higher expenses, which can lead to layoffs or price hikes. And when the U.S. imposes tariffs, other countries often retaliate, making it harder for American farmers and manufacturers to sell abroad. This tit-for-tat can escalate into a trade war, with consumers and businesses caught in the middle. So, tariffs may sound distant, but they hit close to home, affecting what you buy and how much you pay. Former President Trump made tariffs a signature policy, arguing that America was being taken advantage of by trading partners like China and Mexico. His solution? Aggressive tariffs to protect U.S. industries and rewrite global trade rules. It started with targeted tariffs on products like solar panels and washing machines, then expanded to sweeping duties on steel, aluminum, and especially Chinese goods. The administration accused China of unfair practices and imposed tariffs on hundreds of billions in imports. Trump also used tariffs as leverage against allies, targeting Canada, Mexico, and threatening Europe. The most dramatic move was the Liberation Day tariffs, a baseline 10% tax on nearly all imports, with higher rates for countries with higher duties on U.S. goods. This marked a sharp break from decades of U.S. policy favoring free trade. The administration justified these actions as necessary for national security and economic emergency. To bypass Congress, they invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, claiming a national emergency in global trade. This legal maneuver was controversial and set the stage for major court battles. Critics argued the law was never meant to allow the president to unilaterally impose sweeping tariffs. The fight over this authority would soon land in the courts. Trump's trade war fundamentally reshaped America's economic relationships and triggered a fierce legal backlash. As tariffs took effect, opposition surged, not just from economists but from businesses and states hit hardest. The main lawsuit, VOS Selections Inc. v. Trump, was filed by small and mid-sized importers, companies dealing in everything from wine to auto parts. They argued the tariffs were devastating, forcing layoffs and threatening their survival. Their legal case: only Congress can impose taxes, and the president had overstepped by using IEPA to create new tariffs. The law, they said, was meant for emergencies like terrorism, not for rewriting trade policy. States joined the fight, arguing tariffs were hurting local economies. Farmers lost export markets, manufacturers faced soaring costs. In May 2025, the Court of International Trade ruled in favor of the challengers, declaring the tariffs unlawful and the president's actions beyond his authority. But the victory was paused as the Trump administration appealed to a higher court. The legal battle was far from over, but the initial ruling energized opponents of the tariffs. The case now moved to the U.S. Court of Appeals, with the future of Trump's trade policy hanging in the balance. Businesses and states hoped the courts would restore the balance of power and end the costly trade war. The stakes couldn't be higher for the American economy. The case reached the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, a key venue for trade law. In August 2025, the court delivered a landmark decision. Most of Trump's global tariffs were illegal. The judges ruled the president had exceeded his authority under IEPA, which doesn't mention tariffs or taxes. The power to tax and regulate commerce, they said, belongs to Congress, not the president. The ruling struck down the broad Liberation Day tariffs and reciprocal tariffs targeting countries like China and Mexico. However, tariffs on steel and aluminum, imposed under a different law, remained in place. To avoid sudden disruption, the court delayed the ruling's effect until October 14, 2025, giving the administration time to appeal. For now, the tariffs stayed, but the countdown to a Supreme Court showdown had begun. The decision dismantled the core of Trump's trade war and set a powerful precedent on presidential power. The next move would be the administration's and the nation's highest court. The legal and economic stakes had never been higher. Trump's response to the court ruling was swift and defiant. He denounced the decision as politically motivated and insisted all tariffs remained in effect. The White House echoed his stance, vowing to appeal to the Supreme Court and expressing confidence in victory. Officials warned that overturning the tariffs would harm U.S. credibility in trade talks and risk economic chaos. They argued that stripping the president's tariff authority would weaken America's negotiating power. Trump also raised the specter of the government having to repay billions collected in tariffs, a potential financial nightmare. The administration's defense: the president has broad power under IEPA, and losing that would be disastrous. The message was clear: they would fight the ruling all the way to the Supreme Court. The stage was set for a historic legal battle over presidential power and trade. With the appeals court ruling public, all eyes turned to the Supreme Court. The administration was expected to appeal before the October deadline, asking the justices to decide the fate of the tariffs. The stakes: separation of powers, presidential authority over trade, and billions in taxes. The Supreme Court's conservative majority made the outcome unpredictable. Some justices favor strong executive power, others strict adherence to the law's text. The core question: does IEPA give the president the power to impose tariffs, or is that Congress's domain? The justices could strike down the tariffs, uphold them, or issue a split decision. Whatever the outcome, the ruling would reshape the balance of power in Washington. The decision would have lasting consequences for trade policy and presidential authority. The nation awaited a verdict that could redefine the limits of executive power. What would ending the tariffs mean for you? Most immediately, lower prices on imported goods, electronics, clothes, furniture, and more. Without tariffs, import costs drop, and those savings often reach consumers. For example, a $400 bicycle from China with a 25% tariff costs $500. Without the tariff, it could return to $400. Multiply that across thousands of products, and families could save hundreds each year. For businesses, it's a mixed bag. Importers benefit from lower costs, but industries protected by tariffs, like steel, face tougher competition. Some jobs could be lost in those sectors, but others might gain from cheaper materials. Ending tariffs would also help U.S. exporters, as other countries would likely drop their retaliatory tariffs. American farmers and manufacturers could regain access to key foreign markets. The end of the trade war could boost exports, lower prices, and open new opportunities for U.S. businesses. For consumers and many companies, the impact would feel like a broad tax cut. But for some industries, it would mean renewed global competition. The effects would ripple through every corner of the economy. Ending the Trump tariffs would send shockwaves through global trade. For years, tariffs fueled uncertainty and tension, making businesses wary of investing. If the Supreme Court strikes them down, it could restore stability and confidence in international markets. Allies like Canada and the EU, angered by U.S. tariffs, would see their removal as a goodwill gesture, opening doors for new trade deals. The U.S. would need to rethink its strategy with China, shifting from tariffs to diplomacy and coalition building. The decision could encourage more collaboration with allies and a return to rules-based trade. But the transition wouldn't be seamless. Supply chains would need to adjust, and some industries would face new challenges. The political debate over trade won't end. Concerns about jobs and competition remain powerful. Future presidents and Congress will still grapple with how to protect American workers while engaging globally. This case may settle the president's power to impose tariffs, but not the larger debate over America's role in the world economy. The outcome will shape U.S. trade policy for years to come. The world will be watching how America chooses to lead. This case is about more than tariffs. It's about the limits of presidential power. The Constitution divides authority between Congress and the president, especially over taxes and trade. The Trump administration argued that emergencies justify broad executive action. If the Supreme Court agrees, future presidents could impose sweeping tariffs with little oversight. If not, Congress's role in trade policy is reaffirmed and the president's power is checked. The decision will set a precedent for how major economic decisions are made in America. Should one person have the power to impose massive taxes, or should Congress decide? The Supreme Court's answer will shape the balance of power for generations. The outcome will echo far beyond this trade war, defining the boundaries of American democracy.